What's up, everyone, and welcome to the channel. It's your man Busy Brown, and I'm really excited to talk about Munich, the Edge of War. So, personally, I have a lot of things to say about the film. I was gonna break it down, do a play-by-play, but I think we're just gonna do a little simple review. But I'm excited to talk about it. I mean, obviously, there was a lot that went into it. It was a pretty straightforward film as far as giving us tons of events, but it was pretty eventful. Excuse me. But although that was the case, I feel like there was a lot of moments where I feel like we were supposed to feel something, but didn't. I feel like there was a lot of moments that were supposed to be really intense, but at the end of it, I didn't personally connect with the scene, and I didn't feel as though it delivered that much of a connection, I guess, is the bottom line. But other than that, I feel like the film was pretty solid. I mean, that's where we're gonna sit, but we're going to dive into it and talk about certain moments, and I'm excited to do it. So, first off, I mean, I think they did really well with introducing characters, showing the relationships and where people stand. We were introduced with three characters, and that was Lena, that was Hugh, and Paul. And, of course, going into it, I mean, I really didn't know anything. I didn't know what we were doing, but it was cool to see, the different points of where, people specifically stand, because they did a really good job with doing that right off the rip. We got Paul, who clearly is on Team Germany. He was proud to be a part of that nation, I guess. And then we have Hugh who is just sticking to where he's from, and it's it didn't seem like he was on board with that same thought process. Of course, we're introduced with him as kind of like the third wheel, so we know that Paul has a connection with Lena, and I expected her to be a bigger part of the film, just the way that they introduced her. But although she wasn't in the film too much towards the end, her impact on Paul's character was pretty important, and the emotional weight it brought with it was pretty insane, and the only thing is the way they went into it, because obviously we're going into like straight up spoilers, so talking about where Lena is, and when Paul and Hugh finally connect, we finally got to see what Lena's up to, and finding out where she is at the time. She's in a vegetative state, and that really caught me off guard. I didn't know what they were doing, but finding out what the real deal was with her, she got arrested at a protest, and when they found out she was Jewish, there was some things that ended up going terribly wrong, and obviously she was beat on and wasn't able to recover, and that right there was an extremely heavy moment on its own. But to hear Paul talk about it, specifically because where his mindset was, and the last time we got a flashback, and last time we saw them together was them in some big argument, and it was insane, because I mean, this moment did have several moments where we got different interactions with characters, and sometimes it seemed a little intense, but right there, the display between Lena and Hugh and Paul, like that whole dinner sequence was insane, and the acting there was just it was great. So I mean, I did like what they were doing there, but I didn't know where it was going to lead, and to see where it ended up going was pretty heartbreaking. But as we saw, it ended up being a turning point for Paul, I believe. But diving back into it, we ended up having a little time jump, 6 years, which was pretty awesome. I enjoy seeing that, because we know we're going to end up filling the gaps between that 6 years throughout the movie, and I always look forward to that. But we dive into it, we see Huey having a relationship with his wife. We're introduced to them on a rocky start, because obviously we don't know much about it, other than Huey is apparently, he dove into his work, like his work is his life, So seeing that him and his wife aren't getting along, it kind of set up, like what, it kind of made us question, like, what does this mean for the long run? Because, we don't know her character, we just knew Hugh, and we knew that, of course, this work was just extremely important to him. So they did, dealing with relationships right off the bat. And I was excited to see where that would end up going, but of course he ended up going straight back to work, and we had the same little argument between kind of like what he had with his wife, but with his boss, where his boss mentions sometimes you're gonna have to put family before work, and it did look like he had trouble kind of 100% grabbing onto it, but the fact is this was his anniversary, so we do realize there's different things that make him go make him think. And work is one thing that seems to be the stress factor for this character, specifically. But he's not playing around, and we end up seeing that later on, like, when he does end up going to his wife and end up talking to her, apologizing for everything and saying straight up, this may not be the career for me. I'm going to end up doing something else. And it ended up kind of being a big turning point, because, that conversation they had at the end of the episode, or the movie, excuse me, I'm all over the place, was, it was crazy, because it's like, we know where it ended up going from this point on. Like, I did like where this kind of movie was set, because I feel like we don't, personally, I haven't seen many movies where they kind of deal with, what, the public thinks of Hitler, or like, how he kind of got where he was, and it's like, obviously at this point, he may have not been as, people may have not have seen the craziness of, what ended up happening, and it's, I don't know how to word it, I'm trying my best to be, careful with this, because obviously it's just such a delicate topic, of course, during this time there was, some brutal things, and I think, although this movie didn't show any of that craziness, when they did talk about it, it was just, it was still heavy, and it did kind of hurt, because one of the turning points was for Paul, and it's like, with the whole Lena situation, but as we saw him, even like kind of thinking about what was going on, and he was questioning what they should do to, kind of shut him down, and him going to that meeting, we see a whole crowd around a couple, having them scrub the like the dirt off the sidewalk, and the only reason they were having them do that is due to them being Jewish. And it was just, they one thing they did was, even though they weren't showing certain things, just the weight of the dialogue, or just, the weight of the expression on some of these characters' face was just enough to carry that scene. And I think that was one thing that they did really well. Like I said, with just Paul's subtle reaction to seeing the couple on the street, or seeing, his reaction to explaining the whole situation with Lena. It was just extremely brutal, him talking about the Star of David that they ended up, carving on her back, or just little things like that. It was just, I think that that without these actors, I really don't know, because I feel like the music, acting wise, just everything there specifically carried it, for me at least. But there's a lot of different things, and I know a lot of you might have different opinions than I did, because personally, I think that although there wasn't a lot of action, I feel like this movie was just so good at making things feel eventful, and just pushing the story kind of forward, but without making you be like, okay, what's happening next, what's going on? Because although there wasn't tons of action, it just like I was anxious to see what was going to happen next, because we had different moments where where Helen would come up, and where we found out that she had a document which could potentially get her arrested, and different things like that, where it got you wondering who's going to catch them, what's going to happen next. Because me personally, I don't know too much, I'm not a history dude, so it's like, obviously seeing where this could have went, with the smaller characters, I was excited, because I never really knew what was going to happen next. Obviously we knew that Paul wasn't going to kill Hitler at the end of the film, but they still managed to make that moment extremely intense. Although I feel like their goal was to make it even more intense than it ended up being, or more dramatic, it still ended up having a crazy little feel to it, because it was just the giant buildup of him the entire film, trying to work up the courage, or try to close things down from behind the doors, and their final resort was, if he doesn't end up surrendering, we have to do it ourselves. And seeing that Hugh and Paul reconnected throughout all this time, and the way that it ended up going down, where Paul ended up saying, this is how things gotta go, it was just insane, because it's like, I don't know how these moments were gonna play out, because obviously, like I said, we knew it wasn't gonna end up happening, but I didn't know if he was gonna end up dying. I didn't know if what was gonna go on, and a lot of that ended up getting even more crazier when Franz ended up catching on what was going on. When we had that interaction with him and Hugh, and throughout the film, where we ended up seeing Paul and Franz, that they ended up being old pals. So there was a whole bunch of things going on there, and you know, the little side characters really had me stepping on my toes, you know, whether it was, you know, when Paul and Hugh were exchanging informations, and we had Joan, who I didn't know what she was gonna do, but just her, you know, seeming like she was eavesdropping, and she might have delivered that information that she might have learned from Paul and Hugh to someone else. Like, there was just a bunch of little things throughout the film that, you know, I feel like really did a good job, making some of the bigger payoffs mean something. Because although Joan didn't seem like such a big player throughout the film, at the end, when we ended up having that big reveal that she ended up taking the documents, I don't think, like, I feel like that moment was probably the better moments of the film, because I was just all over the place. I didn't know what they were going to do. Seeing, Hugh kind of panic, and after Franz kind of broke into the room, because of course this man was super suspicious of it all, and then him even delivering the note to Hugh delivering the note to Paul saying, you know, I'm sorry, I lost, they were taken, you know. It was just, all of them were at the edge, like, and they didn't know what was going on, you know. They were just shook. They didn't know what was going to happen next, and, you know, I really believed that Franz was going to out him, and specifically when they ended up calling Paul in the room, I'm like, that's a wrap. What's going to happen next? But having the reveal that, you know, Joan ended up talking to Hugh and was saying straight up, you know, I'm glad we had this alone time, and that reveal that she ended up taking the file, it really did blow my mind, you know. I thought that was insane, you know, and it was really great all around, you know. It really did. I feel like they played it right, and it ended up working out pretty well, because like I said, the music and the acting were two main things that I thought were just phenomenal, you know. Although, like I said, the story did feel eventful, but some of these moments weren't as intense as I'd like them to be. It did feel somewhat slow in certain areas, but not too bad. I feel like, different moments where, you know, like the Joan reveal and the music behind that, and then even the intro scene and the music behind that, I feel like they did a really good job, and it really got me like it really had me into the movie, specifically when those moments did, you know, pick up. But that whole reveal was just pretty intense, and I absolutely loved it. So certain payoffs like that did end up making it worth, the whole slow burn. You know, I did enjoy it all the way at the end. But, you know, personally, I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys have to say about it. Like, personally, these are the moments, specifically the ones that I stated, are the ones that stood out. But yeah, there's so much more like that did go on. I'm probably gonna pronounce his name terribly, but Ulrich Mathis, he's the one who played Adolf Hitler, did a scary good job bringing that character to the screen, or bringing, you know, Hitler to the screen. Because although, of course, when you think of Hitler, personally, I just think of a monster. So it's like, from him popping up on screen for the first time, and then his interactions with Paul, and then him not, you know, hesitating to question Paul, saying, you think you're smarter than me, you know, you think you're better, you know, just him kind of interacting with him. It just, every time he was on screen, like I kind of like sunk down, you know. It really caught my attention, because like the dude was just menacing, and it really did freak me out, because I didn't know how things were going to play out, you know. And it was just, it was intense, and it was cheers to him for being able to do that. But, you know, personally, it was a crazy moment all around, you know. But I don't know, like I said, really excited to hear what you guys have to say. There's been tons of insane moments, you know. One moment that does stick out that I do want to say, because I know I was repeating that there were some moments that feel like they were supposed to be a lot more dramatic that weren't. I know a lot of you could probably point out a couple, but I know one scene specifically for me was when Hugh had to deliver the message to, you know, the Prime Minister, and, you know, he's running across, you know, the town trying to get the message there in time. I feel like that moment was supposed to be a little more dramatic, but for some reason it didn't hit, you know. I'm like, okay, he's gonna get there in time, you know. It didn't, you know, feel insanely like intense for me. So I was just like, oh yeah, it is whatever. But I mean, I feel like there's just certain scenes like that just kind of got me, questioning certain things. You know, it wasn't as crazy, you know. But then there were certain scenes where, like I said, the Joan reveal, or, you know, even Helen, you know, revealing that she got the documents. You know, it was one of those things where it was like, I knew it wasn't too crazy, but it's like they made it clear how important that scene was, where she was saying, like she could get, where they were saying she could get arrested for this, or even when Paul mentioned later on in the film that, the thoughts he had with Hitler, and Hugh said straight up, like, you could get killed just by thinking about, like, just for thinking about that, different things like that. Like, I mean, I feel like were somewhat intense. Just the exchange between Hugh and Paul when they first run into each other. Obviously, they weren't going to get all excited and be like, hey, old pal, specifically because we saw the intense scene, which I think they did a hell of a job when they did meet at that diner some time ago, and we see them, exchanging, their political thoughts. Because, of course, Hugh summed their argument down to political differences, where, as we saw, Paul was extremely, for Hitler being in charge. He was saying that he makes me one guy said it makes me proud to be German. He's bringing everything back. Like, he just was on board for it, and it's just like seeing that how his whole mindset changed later on in the film was just it was pretty cool. I think they could have done a better job slowly like throwing little details and show more on why he kind of had a change of heart, because it's like I don't know, I would have loved to see his reaction to certain things and slowly realizing the craziness of it all. But obviously I understand that they can't always do certain things due to well, we already know what kind of happens, obviously, so I didn't expect it to be that insane. But other than that, I think they did a really good job. Even just the whole mention with Lena, I think was fantastic, and I think they did a really good job, just with that specifically, specifically with him talking to Hugh about it and going into detail. It was, oh man, it was just horrifying just to think about, and it was just crazy. So they had different scenes like that were just insane, and it was something else, but, seeing them reconnect after, Paul kind of requested Hugh, I mean, it was just crazy to see the characters just finally kind of dive back into each other, but, and then it leading to the, the whole secrecy of him leading Hugh to to the bench that would tell him to go to the bar, and then seeing all the, flags with the swastikas on it. I mean, it was just different moments like that. It was just the little things that got me all anxious, because it's like we see some of these soldiers standing in the back, and I don't know who's going to question them. We see Joan, who actually kind of witnessed them kind of being secretive, Franz seeing them together. So like just the little characters like that just really made me kind of like at the edge. It got me at the edge of my seat, because I didn't know who was going to squeal, and it was mostly the side characters that got me really anxious. So I mean, I feel like they did a good job. Even though a lot of these characters didn't have major screen time, they still managed to make their mark in the film, and that was pretty cool. So other than that, though, I think the film did a decent job. I don't really, it's like, I didn't dislike the film. I thought it was solid. So I mean, I don't know what I'd officially rate it, but it definitely was. It was pretty solid. I'd say a 7 out of 10. I don't know about y'all, but feel free to go nuts. Maybe 7.5. I don't know, but definitely. I don't know if I'd give it another watch. I mean, I may end up doing it down the road, because I did enjoy, like I said, some of these subtle moments that did end up carrying a lot of weight towards the end. But personally, like I said, that it's just it seemed more of a slow burn. So towards the end, where we end up getting some of the more intense moments, it was pretty cool. But personally, I want to hear what you guys have to say. So go nuts in the comments. Like I said, the acting was phenomenal. Just seeing the way Paul was acting in some of these situations, it was just great. Of course, what's his name? Jeremy Irons. The Prime Minister. Just seeing him actually showing an interest into Hugh and actually listening, or even giving him the time of day, humoring him, it was something else, and I did enjoy, seeing how that ended up working out. But one thing that made some of these things, like I said, even more intense with the credits. We had the credits where it ended up explaining some of the things that did end up happening, talking about how the peace treaty or whatever I think it said only lasted a year, and then it talked about how Neville Chamberlain ended up stepping down after some like the controversy of it all, but talking about how he ended up passing away. But just the music on that, and just hearing the tragic aftermath of it all was just it was crazy, you know, because it's like I haven't seen too many movies like this where it's like they're too like they're realistic. So it's like, but just knowing that a lot of these events ended up happening, or these events ended up happening, and seeing, knowing how brutal some of these things were, it's just, you know, it hits, you know. And I feel like some of these movies always end up leaving a mark, you know. If you guys have any other recommendations like this, any movies that are based on true stories, feel free to recommend, or are true stories, feel free to recommend some, because like I said, although like some of this is, I don't know how to explain it, but I know a lot of it, a lot of these films aren't 100% based on you know, true events. They're, you know, inspired by some, like I know some things are different with certain movies. So I mean, feel free to just recommend certain movies that you do enjoy, you know. And I wouldn't mind. I know 42 was one movie that did stand out for me. You know, so if you have any other recommendations, go nuts, and definitely wouldn't mind checking it out. Like I said, I'm new to the whole review thing. We're usually doing reactions, so that's how it is. But usually we do a big review at the end of the episode, so my reviews are usually longer. And since we watched the episode, or the movies, we usually end up going a lot more into detail. But if you enjoyed this the review, please let me know. And if there's things I could do better, try to let me know. If you are disliking the video, make sure you let me know why. I would really love to know what I can do better to please y'all 100%. But I want to hear your thoughts on what you thought of the movie personally. So go check it out. And yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, I hope you guys are doing well, and I hope you guys are staying safe. And I really do appreciate you guys watching. So hit that like button, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace out.